Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before starting the video, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and give this video a cup. In the quiet charm of Hope Valley, where hearts heal and dreams often find their way home, the return of one beloved face threatens to stir emotions that had only just begun to settle. Elizabeth Thornton and Nathan Grant have finally reached a delicate peace. A fragile beginning to a love that took years to bloom. Yet the arrival of a familiar figure, one who knows their pasts, their wounds and their secrets, could shake the very foundation of what they've built. Season 13 of When Calls the Heart seems poised to remind its audience that in Hope Valley, love stories are never simple, and even the kindest hearts can be tested when the past walks back through the door. It began like a whisper, a rumor around the cafe, a quiet mention by Florence that someone was returning to town. The air grew charged with curiosity, and Elizabeth, though she smiled politely, felt the stirrings of unease. After everything she and Nathan had gone through, their hesitations, their heartbreak, their long path to finally finding each other, the last thing she expected was to be thrust back into uncertainty. But that's exactly what this return promised. The person in question wasn't a stranger. Far from it. This was someone who had once been a part of both their lives, someone who had known Jack Thornton, shared memories with Elizabeth before Nathan had come into her world, and whose sudden reappearance now seemed like fate had decided to reopen a chapter best left closed. The name hadn't been spoken aloud yet, but it was enough to send a ripple of anticipation through the town. Rosemary and Lee exchanged knowing glances. Carson looked thoughtful, and even Bill Avery, ever the stoic observer, seemed unusually pensive. Elizabeth tried to keep her composure, focusing on her classroom, on little Jack, and on the warmth of Nathan's steady presence. Their courtship had become the talk of Hope Valley, not for its grand gestures, but for the quiet devotion between them. Nathan had always been protective of her, not out of pride, but out of a genuine, unwavering love. He had waited, given her space, allowed her to heal. Then in time she had realized that his love was not a shadow of what she had lost, but a light of its own. But the past, as it so often does, had its own way of intruding. When the stagecoach finally arrived, the whole town seemed to pause. Dust rose in golden swirls as the carriage came to a stop outside Abigail's cafe. And out stepped the returning figure, Grace Carter, once a close friend of Elizabeth's during her early years in Hope Valley. Grace had left to build a new life, a new dream, one that took her to Brookfield, where she helped raise orphans and create a home for those who had none. Her presence had been deeply felt when she left, but life went on. Now her return felt like the past folding back upon itself. Elizabeth's heart skipped a beat as she saw her. Grace's eyes, still warm and full of compassion, sparkled with nostalgia as she embraced her old friend. "Elizabeth," she said softly, "it's been far too long." And for a moment, all the tension melted away. They were two friends reunited after years apart, laughing, reminiscing, and catching up on all that had happened. But beneath that joy lingered a subtle tension, because Grace's return wasn't just about friendship. There was another layer, one that neither woman had yet spoken of. Nathan, standing across the street with his usual watchful calm, felt something shift. He remembered Grace too, before Elizabeth had fully opened her heart to him. There had been fleeting moments when Grace and Nathan had shared something of their own, not quite romance, but an understanding. They had bonded over shared pain, over duty and loss. And though it had never blossomed into anything more, it had left a mark. Seeing her again stirred memories Nathan thought he'd long buried, and that unsettled him more than he wanted to admit. Grace noticed the change in his expression. When they greeted each other later that day, "Mountie Grant," she said, offering a smile that didn't quite hide her own emotions. "It's good to see you again." Nathan nodded politely, his voice steady but quiet. "Welcome back, Grace. Hope Valley's missed you." The exchange lasted only seconds, but Elizabeth saw it. The flicker of recognition, the trace of unspoken history. It wasn't jealousy that crept into her heart, not exactly. It was more complicated than that. The realization that love, Even the purest kind can't erase everything that came before. Over the following days, Hope Valley embraced Grace's return with open arms. She began helping at the orphanage again, teaching music lessons and lending a hand wherever she could. Her kindness made it impossible for anyone to resent her. Yet for Elizabeth and Nathan, her presence was like a quiet storm that never quite passed. Every conversation seemed to circle around the memories she stirred. Every glance felt charged with questions neither of them dared to ask aloud. Elizabeth tried to focus on her students, on her writing, on little Jack's laughter echoing through their small home. But at night she found herself thinking about how complicated love had become. She had lost one great love, found another, and now stood in the strange in-between of past and present. Nathan, too, was conflicted. His love for Elizabeth was unwavering, yet he couldn't deny that Grace's reappearance had shaken something loose in him, an old regret, perhaps, or unfinished emotions that needed to be faced. One evening, Elizabeth invited Grace over for tea. The two women sat by the fire, the flickering light casting soft shadows across their faces. "I never expected to be back here," Grace confessed. "But something kept pulling me. I missed this place, the people, the feeling of belonging." Elizabeth smiled gently. "Hope Valley has a way of calling us home when we least expect it." They spoke of their journeys, their losses, their hopes, and then Grace hesitated before saying, "Elizabeth, I owe you something honesty. Before I left, Nathan and we shared something. Not love, not really, but a connection. It was never meant to hurt you, and I never thought it would matter years later. But now seeing you two together, I didn't want to keep that from you." Elizabeth's heart sank for a moment, though her expression stayed calm. She nodded slowly, letting the words settle. "Thank you for telling me," she said softly. "I think part of love is accepting that people have histories. Nathan and I have both had our share of pain. But what we have now, it's ours. And that's what matters." Grace's eyes glistened. "You've always had such grace, Elizabeth. Maybe that's why you were meant for him after all." Outside, the snow had begun to fall, blanketing the town in quiet stillness. Nathan, standing by the fence near the schoolhouse, looked toward Elizabeth's home. He didn't know what had been said inside, but he felt a strange sense of peace, as if something had been resolved. Still, the season had more surprises in store. Grace's return wasn't just emotional, it had purpose. She brought with her a proposal to build a small annex for orphan children near Hope Valley, a project that would require cooperation from the townspeople, including Nathan as part of the Mountie oversight. Working closely together reignited old rhythms, shared laughter, and the kind of camaraderie that can easily blur lines. Elizabeth noticed, and though she trusted Nathan, she also knew that old emotions have a way of resurfacing when least expected, in a particularly tender scene. Nathan found himself helping Grace late one evening as they went over plans for the orphanage expansion. The lantern light flickered across her face, and for a moment the past and present seemed to merge. "You've built something beautiful here," he told her, meaning both the plans and the person she'd become. Grace smiled faintly. "I tried to build something good out of loss. Maybe we all did." Their eyes met for a fleeting second before Nathan stepped back, aware that his heart was already spoken for. Later that night, Elizabeth asked him gently, "Do you ever wonder what might have been if Grace had stayed?" Nathan looked at her, his eyes full of truth. "No," he said simply, "because if she had, I might never have found you." It was a moment of clarity, a declaration not just of love but of choice. But Hope Valley is a place where stories rarely end neatly. Grace's project soon met resistance, not from townsfolk, but from unexpected visitors from her past who questioned her motives, stirring gossip and tension. Elizabeth, always the bridge between people, stepped in to defend her, reminding the town that compassion was at the heart of everything Hope Valley stood for. Nathan, too, came to her aid, and in doing so, the three found themselves bound in a shared mission that tested their strength and trust. By the season's midpoint, it became clear that Grace's return had changed everyone. For Elizabeth and Nathan, it forced them to confront insecurities and rediscover what made their love so resilient. For Grace, it was a journey of redemption, a chance to forgive herself for leaving, for the choices she made, and for the feelings she never fully understood until now. In one of the most poignant moments of the season, Grace visited Jack Thornton's grave, placing a single white flower there. Elizabeth watched from a distance, tears in her eyes. Grace whispered, "Thank you for loving her first. Because of you, she knows how to love deeply." That quiet act closed the loop between past and present, between grief and healing. As the season drew toward its end, Grace prepared to leave again, not because she was unwelcome, but because her heart told her her work